Hi everyone, Armoured Pants here, and I have a new video for you in the British line. This is the Tier 5 Crusader complete guide and review. As always, we're going to have a look at the tech spec first before gameplay, and we will use blitzhanger.com to do that. Now, this is a decent light tank. It's a good place to start with light tanks if you want to, although probably the AMX electric biscuit is better. It's very typical of later British tanks that it has this poor power to weight ratio, but it has good rate of fire, in particular like the Comet, which you're going to meet in Tier 7. I would run black tea because you want to maximize your view range and rate of fire in this tank, and particularly view range because it's a light tank. And light tanks, as you know, should be the eyes of the team, so therefore view range is important. Two guns, both 6-pounders or converted to real speak 57mm. The top gun has much better DPM, so you want to get that as quickly as possible. You get 130mm of pen with gun rammer if you use the top gun, 180mm of pen with APCR, and only 15 with HE, so you won't be firing too much HE, so you can not have so much of that in your ammo loadout. Muzzle velocity is 892 meters per second, but you can get up to 1160 meters per second with supercharge. If you are managing your shells, cycling through them, be aware that APCR has a different muzzle velocity to AP and HE. It's 115 meters per second without supercharge, and it goes up to almost 1500 meters per second with supercharge, so it's really good. So just be aware of that when cycling through your cells. APCR has a significantly better muzzle velocity, almost 40% better. Reload time is 3.34 seconds with gun rammer. If you use calibrated shells, it's 3.59, almost 3.6. I would also run vertical stabilizer because you fire a lot when moving. And as to whether you run gun rammer or calibrated shells, it's entirely up to you. It doesn't really make too much difference. Gun depression is 7 degrees, elevation is 20 degrees. The tank does 42 kilometers per hour straight on, 22 in reverse, which seems good, right? But it's not, because it has a really bad power to ratio. I mean really bad. This thing takes off like an asthmatic ant with heavy shopping. It also has very poor traverse. When we look at the armor inspector here, we see it has no real armor, but what it does have is active camo when moving, because it's a light tank. It's a light tank bonus, so therefore when you're moving you don't break camo, unlike other tank types, so your camo is pretty good, and that's an advantage and should be utilized when playing this tank. Your camo numbers only break when you fire, not when you move, and as I said, that is different to every other tank type. So that's a light tank advantage or a light tank bonus. Why do you have it? Well, the purpose of having it is to allow you to get out and to spot the enemy, so you can move without breaking camo, because you are the eyes of the team. We have a light tank guide on channel, and if you haven't watched it already, I would really encourage you to watch it, because it explains the role of a light tank very well, and explains what you should be doing and how you should be playing a light tank, of which the Crusader is an example. And therefore I would please ask you to watch it so that you understand the role you should be playing in this. We will discuss that role a little bit when we look at gameplay, but I would ask you please to look at that light tank guide, because it will really help you play this tank to its maximum effectiveness. Now, in terms of tactics, you know, this tank suffers because of this power to weight ratio. So unlike other light tanks, and we mentioned the AMX ELC electric biscuit, it's not fast in taking off. It feels really cumbersome. So therefore you need to play this using its camo benefits. So get out, spot, scout, and keep safe. It's not a tank which is going to whiz around the map. Its power to weight ratio it doesn't lend itself to that. So you will find that you're going to suffer a bit. So therefore, play to the strengths it has, which is that rate of fire and those camo numbers, and get out there, use it, and use that to spot the enemy. Now, we're going to have a look at two games. First game, by the way, is not me, so it's a while since I've done a video without my own gameplay. And this is one of my clan mates, and coincidentally, we're just talking on clan chat, and he just mastered the Crusader just when I was doing the prep for this video. So I decided to use his. It's always good to take a look at other people's gameplay as well. What we see here is a classic kind of light tank play at the start. So you're going down the channel, the light tank channel, which is, if this was the supremacy map, which is towards A here. It's a good place to go in a light tank because it allows you to spot up. As we said, we are the eyes of the team, so therefore you want to spot up the enemy And we can see here that they have spotted up a number of the enemy tanks. So now positions of those enemy tanks are relayed back to the allies. So therefore, the rest of the team knows where they are. And that is the key role of a light tank. Spot up the enemy so that your team knows where they are. If you can put in some damage in the meantime, all well and good. But the key role is to spot up the enemy. Once you know where the enemy is, you have significant advantage during the game and increase your percentage of winning. Now, that didn't go too well for the platoon at the start because they ran into most of the enemy and they got outnumbered and they are a tank down. However, not all is lost. And you saw a couple of interesting things about playing this tank in this game. One, the fast reload allows you to fire shots on spec. You reload so quickly that you can fire off a few shots on spec to see if you can do damage. It doesn't matter if you pen or don't pen because your reload is so fast that you're back in action again quickly. When you have a tank with slow reload, that is of course much more risky because you then have the possibility of firing off, not doing any damage, and then when you have an actual shot lined up, you can't actually take it. He's doing the right thing here. He is positioning himself so that he's able to keep the enemy spotted up for his allies. This is key, and again, as we said, it is the key to light tank play. And you can see here then he's able to clear off by putting himself into this. It's a vulnerable position, right? Because he's in the middle of the map. There's a possibility that he could get overrun, but he needs to spot up the enemy for his teammates. If he doesn't, he's not doing his job, and they would probably lose this game because they actually had a bad start, losing a tank early on due to being overwhelmed. But the key thing about his gameplay here is that in this position, he is keeping the enemy entirely spotted up for his allies. And that is the key thing he's doing, and this is the key role of a light tank. By the way, you may say, okay, well, you know, I don't want to do that. I want to just get out there and do damage and kill other tanks. Fine, you can do that, but generally what will happen is you will die. You win games as a team and you lose them as a team. Blitz, of course, has good individual players, but a team that plays together as a team and for each other will win 9 times or 95 times out of 100. Because this is a team game. You know, there's no doubt about it. If it was an individual game, it would just be 1 against 1, right? But it's not. It's a team game. It's 7 against 7, and you need to play as a team. The key role of the light tank is to be the eyes of the team. Relay those positions back to your teammates. If you're doing that, you're playing a good team game. You're enabling your team to do damage. And here's another thing, right? This is a mastery game, by the way, as we said at the start. You get huge amount of XP for spotting the enemy and relaying those positions back to your teammates. And then you see he gets his reward. He's able to get his kill eventually, right? So that's the second kill that he's gotten in the game, and he's been patient. He's done his job. He's gone around. He's done exactly what he should be doing. You see again another shot on spec. Again, another shot, another kill. He's taking a bit of damage there, but he saved some base points, base capture points, and he's been able to use his rapid rate of fire to put some real damage into the enemy. And then you go, another kill. And what started off looking like might be a disastrous game for my clanmate in the Crusader actually turned out to be a really good game. 4 kills, a mastery badge delivered. And that really shows, firstly, how to play the Crusader, playing it in the role that it should be played in as a light tank, being the eyes of the team. It also shows some, which is something, an aspect of the game which is often overlooked, which is the thinking part of the game, right? So I'm not just driving up, spotting the enemy, seeing your overrun, and then just, staying there with your 2 allies and getting killed, right? Thinking, assessing, reassessing, moving, right? Arm, assess, reassess, move. If he had stayed where he was, he would have died as well, right? Because you're talking about 5 against 3 situation. So more likely he would have died. Not only do they lose another tank, the Greens, but here's the thing, they lose the eyes. they wouldn't have been able to spot up those enemy tanks, and they would have taken damage and not been able to inflict damage. When you spot up the enemy, you are able to deliver damage, not just from you, but across your entire team. You see there, it's only 1.5k of damage, right? So it's not a significant amount of damage, but the mastery badge is delivered because of the active actions. It's delivered because of the XP, not because of the damage or necessarily the number of kills. It's to do, for example, we look here, the spotting, right? He spotted up almost all of the enemy. And that's the key job that he should do. He did do it. And this is really important in delivering that mastery badge. Without those active actions, he would not have been able to get that mastery badge. So it's not only about killing and going out and doing damage, right? You need to play the long term, and you need to play the thinking game, particularly when you're in light tank. We're going to have a look at another mastery game here. This time it is me playing. And this game is interesting. It's on the Oasis Palms map. It's a supremacy game, and I'm up tiered. So we're going to have a look at the Crusader playing in an up tiered game. And we're going to try to utilize the lessons and the tactics that we discussed earlier on. So we are going to try to go and spot and scout. We are going to try to utilize the active camo numbers on the tank to get out there, but at the same time staying safe, not being silly. And up until I think almost the 5th minute of this game, I actually don't take a single shot. And this is exactly what you should be aiming for when you're playing a tank with virtually no armor like the Crusader. You can see there the low caliber gun over distance, I get a bounce, but then next time, nice roll. And you can see here with a fast reload, you're able to put a lot of damage in. And this is a higher tier tank, side on, bam, nice shot. So you're able to put 3 shots into him. The Sherman Firefly is a dangerous tank in the enemy team. It has a massive rate of fire and can do a lot of damage very quickly. But we're able to clear him off. So again, going towards the light tank, medium tank channel, going towards C. Now I'm capturing C. We've helped my allies spot and clear off that enemy tank. I'm going to slow this down here. This is what I mean about not having any armor. If you look where that shell hits in that Crusader, normally on another tank that would bounce off. But because the Crusader has really no ammunition, and by the way, I'm firing a light caliber shell at only 57mm, it goes right through. But here's the paradox, right? And I want to slow this down. You can get bounces, particularly off the sides of the turret and the gun mantle, as you saw there. But you can't really play for those. If you're trying to play for bounces in this tank, you're going to have very short, very bloody, and very poor games. But you can get those, what they call troll bounces, right? Bounces you haven't played for. It's definitely an element to look to it. But if you keep moving and you move your turret, etc., then of course you're maximizing the chance of getting those bounces. Again, I'd like you to take note of what I'm doing here, right? This is not a front-on tank, not at all. It can't take damage, it can't take shots. As we said, you might get the odd troll bounce, but in reality, you're not going to get bounces. So therefore, you need to, I'll slow that down so you can show the poor muzzle velocity in action over distance, get a fluffy shot. But you know, you can't go front on in this tank, you know, but you can do a lot of damage and be very effective if you move off to the sides, reset camo as I did there, come back in from an unspotted position on the flank, and this is where this tank excels, right? Getting into a position where you have good line of fire open up, and you can actually then use that fast reload to just pump some damage in and utilize that good DPM. Now, I mentioned earlier on that the poor power to weight ratio in this tank is a problem. It's particularly a problem if you're trying to use a typical tactic that you would normally use with a light tank, which is Circle of Death. The power to weight ratio, which means its acceleration from a standstill and its ability to get up hills, etc., it means that this tank finds it difficult to circle death. You need to get in very close and keep that gun away. And you saw there the problem, right? When you're playing a tank like this is the only shot I took in the whole game, and I lost 70% of my hit points. Particularly if you're up tiered, and by the way, that was a KV1S, a KV2 can one-shot you. So you need to be aware of that. If you're trying to circle of death in this tank, If you don't do it well, if you lose concentration, or if you're in a hilly area, you can die, because this tank does not have the power to weight ratio to get around hilly and difficult terrain easily. And something that has decent traverse and is relatively mobile, like a KV-1S, can really hurt you. And you don't have the hit points, you don't have the armor to take too many hits. So you can see there, I had 1 penetration in this whole game, and I've lost, well, I said 70, but so was 66% of my hit points from 1 hit. And by the way, if he had HE'd me and had done a max roll, I might be down to like 50, 60 hit points now. And if it was a KV2, he could take you out with 1 shot. So be aware of that, you know. If you've played other light tanks, and again I'll mention the AMX Electric Biscuit, right? That gets around the map really quickly. It's power to weight ratio, it's a flying machine. This tank is not like that. You can see here when I'm going up the hill, look how slow it is going down. I'm doing 24 kilometers an hour up the hill. Power to weight ratio is really a disadvantage of this tank, and you need to be cognizant of that, or you can end up in some sticky situations. Again, a mastery badge delivered, again 1.4k of damage. But again, it's the active actions that deliver the mastery badge. So let's have a recap. This is a decent light tank, but it has limitations, in the main one being no armor and that power to weight ratio. It does have light tank camo benefits though, but the poor power to weight ratio is really one of the limitations that you need to be aware of, because it's not as agile as most light tanks, and it also has that really poor traverse compared to other light tanks. Therefore, you need to maximize your view range, use your camera numbers, get out, spot and scout, because you know, that's what this tank is good at. Supercharged vertical stabilizer, I would run. Gun rammer or calibrated shells both work, so it's up to your preference whether you prefer to have a faster reload. You really need to watch that traverse though. Move the tracks if you need to traverse quicker. The rate of fire is excellent, and you're going to do 95 to 120 damage points with AP rounds per roll. And don't go front on. It's not a good idea in this tank. You know, if that's your only option, think again, reassess. Remember, learn that lesson from the KV-1S shot in that game. Be the eyes of your team. Watch the light tank guide if you haven't already. Circle of death. You need to get in really close and keep that enemy gun away from you, because the power to weight ratio can get you killed. Simple as. So I hope you found that useful. I hope you found it enjoyable. I guess all that remains for me to say is cheers, Mush, and pants off.